trees and going through his progressions, he's kind of at his best whenever he can improvise a little bit, roll out, get him in some one-on-one matchups where he can tuck it and run. We didn't see a whole lot this year of that from SMU because Shane Buechele is not, the most athletic quarterback. But you look back into some of Brett Lashley's previous stops, he had guys like that. So I don't think it's, I wouldn't say it's a bad fit at all. I don't know if it's the most optimal fit, but I wouldn't say it's a bad fit.
Okay, you're actually one step ahead of me because I was going to ask you if you had to critique D'Eriq in any way, what would it be? Because, we've only heard, and we're not trying to be, negative at all, but what we've heard as Hurricanes fans and covering this program, we've just heard just so many great things because, his 2018 season speaks for himself, 36 passing touchdowns, 14 rushing touchdowns. I was just wondering if there was anything bad about D'Eriq's play or anything to critique, but you already answered that.
Well, yeah, he's not the perfect quarterback. He's not somebody that is going to go in the top 3 rounds of an NFL draft. If I'm going to be very critical, and again, look, I love D'Eriq King. I think he's a great college quarterback. He's not the biggest, he's not very tall. That makes it tough for him to, see over the offensive line. It is what it is. I know that it's modern football and, shorter, smaller quarterbacks have more success now than they ever had. But one way to do that is get him out of the pocket, have him rolling around, make him a threat in the running game, which he is. He is an electric runner. He can score on you pretty quickly if he beats the spy or anything like that. But if you are going to critique D'Eriq and you look at these 4 games this year that he had with Houston, and it probably is too small of a sample size to give a really fair and accurate grade, is that he would be a little inconsistent. He would have some tough times going through the progressions. He struggled with the deep ball this year, which was weird because his junior year he was really good with the deep ball. And I think a lot of it is that he dealt with a lot of offensive coordinators in a short amount of time. One thing that's not football related so much is the injury concerns. Like D'Eriq's been banged up over the course of his career. He missed the last few games of his junior season. He was healthy in all 4 games this year, but even in his first couple of years at Houston, he had some knocks and some things he was trying to play through. He had some fluke injuries in the offseason. So if I'm going to critique D'Eriq's quarterback ability, the accuracy at times can be a little erratic, and you hope and you keep your fingers crossed that he can avoid injury.
All right, perfect. So let's see. I had a question. Crap. Oh yeah, sorry, my bad.
No problem.
So, is there any reason for Miami fans to be concerned when it comes to D'Eriq King playing in a Power 5 conference, a Power 5 schedule, that type of stuff? Should we be concerned, or are you pretty confident in him when it comes to that?
It's tough, because I think that the American Conference at the top of the league can play with the big boys. The University of Houston a few years ago, and Tom Herman was around and Greg Ward was around. They beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl. We've seen what UCF has done over the last few years. I think at the very top that the American can play with some of the better teams in college football. But it's the week in, week out, right? It's the week in, week out of going up against 4 5-star recruits each and every week. And I don't think from an ability standpoint that D'Eriq will have any problem. It's more to the thing I was saying earlier about the injuries. Can he sustain the hits week in, week out? And that's one thing that, Holgorsen was trying to do with him this year is he wanted him to run a little bit less because he wanted him to make it through an entire season because he's not big. He's not a big kid. And, you don't want your quarterback taking a bunch of licks every single game because they can't make it through the entire season if they're doing that. And he's never done that in his career. So I would be critical of that if I'm looking at it from a Miami perspective is you want him to be dynamic. You want him to be electric. You don't want to take that away from him. But at the same time, if he's taking those hits each and every week, especially in the ACC, can he get through the whole season? That's a tall order for D'Eriq.
Yeah, absolutely. And he definitely is a shorter guy. And to close it all off, Jeremy, and again, we thank you for coming on. We just wanted to ask about your Texans and how do you see our boy Duke Johnson fitting in? I know he had a solid year with the Texans this year, but how do you see him with the future?
Yeah, I like Duke Johnson a lot. I host a radio show in Houston. We had Duke on as a guest right before their playoff loss against Kansas City. And he's one of the more entertaining guys. I think he's kind of one of the more laid back guys too. He's kind of he's an NFL star almost, but he's pretty calm. He's pretty chill, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
I like Duke Johnson's game a lot. I think he's one of the best third down running backs in the NFL. I think if you asked Houston Texans fans, they wish Bill O'Brien used him a little bit more because he can be pretty dynamic at times. And a lot of folks felt that he should get more touches on this offense and didn't. It'll be interesting going into next season, though, because Carlos Hyde's a free agent. He ran for 1,000 yards this season. There's been some talks that maybe the Texans go younger at the running back spot. They let Hyde walk. Maybe they draft a running back in the middle rounds that can share the workload for Duke Johnson. But if I had to guess, if Hyde's leaving, I think that's more work for Duke.
I'd love to see it, man. He was my favorite player. Like, he's probably my favorite Miami Hurricane of all time, and I've just been dying to see him get a bigger workload in the NFL just to see what happens. I know he's smaller and he's kind of, on the physical side, he's perfect for a third down back, but I'd just like to see him get, closer to 15 touches a game and just, see if he can succeed in that role.
I do too. I really would like to see that because there were times this year where the Texans offense could really use more Duke Johnson, whether it's out of the backfield or catching passes, because he's such a good receiver out of the backfield that I felt he could be used. The word around the streets is that he's not the greatest, pass blocker, picking up coverages, things like that. And that's been a concern for the Texans. Let's face it. Deshaun Watson nearly got killed a couple of years ago. They got better last year, but, they've been very focused on protecting Deshaun. And the word on the street is that Duke's not great as a pass protector. But if he can catch passes out of the backfield, get rid of the ball quick, you don't have to worry about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Texans have had some luck with Miami Hurricanes. You had Andre Johnson there for a long time. So let's hope Duke is the same way. But Jeremy, we thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a great interview, and just thanks again.
Yeah, Andre Johnson was out at the Fertitta Center last night watching some Houston Cougar basketball. I see him around all the time at Texans practice too. Texans love Deshaun, or I should say Andre, not Deshaun. Texans loved Andre Johnson. I know Miami fans do too. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy.
That was a good interview. Jeremy, he knows what he's talking about.
All right, guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I loved it. That was cool.
Yeah, just gave us kind of a real inside look at what D'Eriq King thrives at. Obviously, there's a lot, but I think it's important to talk about because every player has struggles, and we've just been hyping him up so much. I think it's fair to go into some of the weaknesses.
Yeah, no, I think it's good because we as Miami fans we kind of get caught up in the whole like feedback loop of hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of the delusion comes from, is that it's all hype, constant 24/7 hype.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad we took it that direction and just kind of things to watch out for, and clearly he was a big fan of D'Eriq King, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's nice to wrap our heads around the fact that it's not going to be a perfect season, even if he does play great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I know we got a guest coming on in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. What do you say we answer some of those mailbag questions?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll pull them up right now. All right, so the first one is, I like this question a lot. This is from Adrian Bistolfi, a friend of the podcast and frequent mailbag contributor. If you could drop yourself in any one moment of Canes history that you haven't already witnessed, what would it be?
That's a good question.
I think
you go first.
Okay, so for me it would be that like 6-season span from 87 to 91, where we won 87, 89, 91. And then there was a few national championship losses in there too, or just other high season finishes. Just such a dominant era for Miami and even college football. That has to be one of the better runs in all time.
Oh, absolutely. If I had to pick one moment, I have three answers. I would pick the 84 Orange Bowl against Nebraska. just because, I mean, that's where it all started. That's when 31-30 we win our first national championship with Howard, and it's just the most important moment in program history. Second, I would go 1989 against Notre Dame when they were undefeated, reigning national champions, and we had them in the Orange Bowl. It was a regular season game, but everything I've heard about that game is just very historic, and I heard the Orange Bowl was louder than ever. And then the third game, I would pick the 2000 FSU game, wide right number 3, when they were also coming in as defending national champions. We hadn't beaten Florida State in like 6 years. They were ranked number 1. We were ranked 7th, and Dorsey hits Jeremy Shockey for that touchdown, and then they missed the field goal wide right, and just one of those games you wish you were there for, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've never seen any of my teams win a national championship or a NBA Finals national championship, Super Bowl, anything. So.
You poor thing.
I know, man. I'm tearing up just thinking about it.
You know what? The Jazz have kind of screwed you over.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm resigned to. I've kind of lost interest in the MLB, and I was a big Denver Broncos fan growing up, and then I kind of I stopped caring about them when I was probably 10 years old. So yeah, it's just been down to the Utah Jazz and Miami Hurricanes for the last 16 years, and that's gone very horribly for me.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
No, you're fine. It's true, man. It's true. That's I mean, the Jazz are one of the more tortured fan bases of the NBA, and like they've been way better than Miami has for the last 15 years. Like way better.
Wait, whoa, wait, whoa! What are you talking about? We won 3 championships.
No, I'm talking about the Hurricanes, man.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, being a Utah Jazz fan versus a Miami Hurricanes fan, it's been much easier being a Jazz fan in the last 15 years, which says something, because they are one of the worst, like, most tortured, just awful luck fan bases in NBA history.
Yeah, I mean, but at least they give you a taste of success.
Yeah, right. I love getting bounced in the second round by getting swept. It's great.
By the Rockets.
Yeah, I love just getting eliminated in the first or second round of the playoffs every year. And then, well, now I've in the last year and a half, I've been cultivating my fanhood of the Buffalo Bills.
Oh my
Which
god.
is probably the most tortured fan base in NFL history. So
yeah.
I know how to pick them, dude. If I choose to be a Cowboy team, that's a very bad sign.
The Cowboys have tortured me very thoroughly. So
yeah. I mean, they had that good run in the 90s, but since then that would be pretty tough,
It sucks because I'm a Cowboys fan, a Hurricanes fan, and a Yankee fan, and they all were great. Right up until the moment I was born or like started watching sports.
Yep.
Like I've been screwed. Like the Yankees have won World Series since 2000, pretty much since I started watching baseball. The Cowboys, I hate them so much. I hate them because they've tortured me so much. And it's the same way with the Hurricanes.
Yep.
I'm getting worked up again. This is what happens. I get worked up.
I feel it. And now I'm getting just like
Oh
man, I'm getting emotionally invested in the Bills, like more and more by the day. And I mean, their claim to fame is losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. So,
hey, 2 to my Cowboys. So,
yeah. Oh, so that brings us to our next mailbag question, which was very important from Fours Up podcast contributor Mike McCoy. How bad will the Cowboys suck this season?
Okay. Mike. Shut up. Hold on, I'm grabbing a Twizzler really quickly.
Oh, dude. Oh, that came across my Twitter feed. I knew I had to ask.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike's giggling about it.
You want to talk to Cowboys? Because I got an opinion.
Every year I just assume we're going 8-8 or 9-7. So.
Yeah. Well, if you guys pay, I can't even. Dak Prescott. If you pay Dak Prescott and having paid Ezekiel Elliott, you guys are going to go 8-8 for a really long time. That's a lot of money to two guys